So people come and they ask us all the time, hey, we have this new gun, will you support it? Which is great and flattering, but from a practical perspective, I'm often skeptical, right? Because it seems like new stuff oftentimes has problems with it. What are your thoughts around guns and then magazines? Do you have like standards that you use to think about, hey, I'm willing to carry this gun for the purposes of saving my life or the people's lives that I care about, or use this new piece of equipment?
I think for me, I become like a victim of my own experience where a lot of the things that you see in terms of new equipment, oh, I have this new magazine. Like my initial response is, okay, what does this do differently than other magazines? Especially when I have magazines I've used for the last 20 years that I don't have a problem with. So something like that, it doesn't make sense for me to change for the sake of change. If it's truly innovating and it's providing an advantage, right? And I would assess like, yes, this is fulfilling, solving a problem that exists for me. But I think in all honesty, most gear and equipment that's coming out nowadays is solving problems that don't exist for me personally.
So something like a translucent magazine, is that a thing that,
Not for me.
is it a problem you're trying to solve at all, of being able to see the ammo that's in the magazine?
No, because the PMags I have a window where I can see the magazine in there or see the rounds in the magazine. I also don't think in terms of how I've used rifle magazines, right? If there is a doubt in my mind that I need to do a reduced capacity load of the rifle, I'm just going to do it and retain that magazine. I'm not going to take the time to look and count.
Yep.
You know, if I've shot a bunch and I want to make the gun in a better condition for another engagement, then I'll just do the reduced capacity load when it makes sense and go from there. In terms of the pistols, you know, I think I look at the experiences that I've had with changing from, you know, Glock 35 to, you know, SP01s to stock 2s to Shadow 2s, then back to Glocks. The guns never made that big of a difference to me, right? They recoil a little bit differently, but I like the idea, you know, in the military, the guns that I carried for duty was the same gun I carried for EDC, for everyday carry, and the same ones that I compete with. The limiting factor is never the gun, it's typically the guy holding it that's causing all the problems. And that was a hard hurdle for me to get over for years, where I thought the gun was going to be an advantage. And to me, I just like the simplicity of the Glock. It's easy, it runs, it's easy to work on. You can buy a bunch of different parts for it.
Was the change in search of that, like, hey, I want to try this SPO1 or whatever because I think it's going to make a difference?
Yeah, I 100% saw what was happening in the competitive world and thought the gun that the top guys had these guns that has to be an advantage. So let me try those out and see. And what I found it just created more problems than it solved for me. And then I didn't like the idea of shooting one platform, a whole bunch for training, and then having a completely another platform for competition.
If somebody presented you with like a first generation gun, would you consider using that for your kind of do everything gun, either your duty gun or your competition gun and your carry gun, or does that automatically rule itself out because it's an unknown?
No, not that it's an unknown, because I think technology has come a long ways. You know, the duty style striker fire guns are all very, very reliable. For me, it's more of does it make sense to commit the time to changing platforms, to changing magazines, changing all the holsters, right? There's a cost benefit analysis that I'm going to apply to that. And what I'll see typically for everything is it doesn't make sense for me to change guns.
Because the performance change is not enough or anything at all
Yeah,
to
or
impact.
anything. It would be most of the time you see guys doing that, especially in this industry, it's because they're paid to shoot that gun. Or they're either not necessarily paid in money, but they're paid in guns and paid in equipment, and then that becomes, you know, part of their business, where I just don't need to do that. And it also wouldn't make sense in terms of skill development for me to do that. It would create a whole nother path of work that I have to go down to be as comfortable with that gun as this gun that I've been shooting for the last 25 years.
If you have somebody who's like a new to shooting, hey, I want to get a gun for self defense, how do you guide that person? What kind of advice do you give that person when they're thinking about buying something?
I would tell them my own experiences with guns. I would tell them to go to a store, if they have an area for you to rent guns, right? Try them out. Part of it, I feel like it's fitting golf clubs, right? If you stand above it and you like the way it looks, you put a gun in your hands, it feels good to you, right? You're probably going to shoot that better than a gun that doesn't feel good to you at all. But in terms of like advantage, I just give them my experience, my firsthand account of shooting. I've shot this gun, I've shot that gun, right? And if it were up to me, I don't think buying a Glock 19 or Glock 17 is going to be a disadvantage. But everybody, everyone wants the new hotness.
Hmm.
We have this gun that came out. Well, now it's in a steel frame, and now it's this, and they're all really good guns. But is it a major performance change? And I don't. For me personally, it's not. Right? Maybe for some people there's a psychological bump, but I would think that it's more a perception thing rather than is actual hard facts that yes, this gun returns faster, shoots faster, stays on target faster. Right? I just don't see that. Like I think metal frame guns, the recoil impulse, I don't prefer that over how a Glock recoils.